The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to think and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes. It is Monday, June 13th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us for this next 60 minutes of news, talk, interviews, information, music, comedy, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. And for those of you listening live, stay tuned for Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio that commences at 1400 Pacific Time. I've switched my clock to military time. I don't know why. I think I know why. It's the Libremator. The Libremator works in military time.
That's exactly why you do it.
Yeah, that's exactly why I do it. And also joining us with his special headset, the pirate, Ganja John. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Let's see if I can get that on camera. I'm having trouble with webcam Max today, so we'll see if that'll switch over. There we go. There's John. Show him the...
My headphone broke.
Broken headphone.
Headphone right before the show started.
Looks like we have another investment to make. So if you'd like to buy Ganja John a new set of headphones.
Now I can see out of my right eye and only hear out of my right ear.
He's special.
I'm going to be a little to the right today.
Yeah, if you want to get Ganja John a new set of headphones, go to our blog at stash.norml.org. We've got donate buttons up there on the right side. Donate for a new set of headphones for John. Also joining us from our virtual studio in Grastoria, Oregon is Cannabis Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
Both ears today.
You've got headset on both ears.
Yes.
Glad to hear it. How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. A little rainy out here. I'm really ready for summer. I didn't think I'd say that, but I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready for summer too. And we got summertime coming up here in just 2 weeks. We're going to be podcasting and streaming live from the Medical Cannabis Cup in San Francisco, California. Just booked the hotel room today. We are at the Pickwick in San Francisco, just a 5-minute drive away. So that's going to be really cool. And also, I want to let you know, this is the first day I'm letting people know. I'd forgotten about this. It creeps up on me every year. My vacation. They forced me to take vacation. So after we get back from San Francisco, that's when my vacation starts. So the week of the 27th and then the July 4th week, no show. I will be on vacation, so you will go into 2 weeks of withdrawals without your NORML Show Live. I'll put some replays on. We'll get some shows on, have something there for you. But
I'll still do some shows.
John will be on. And also we've got Kaliko the intern in the house today. So hey to Kaliko.
Hello.
Shout out to Kaliko. Hey, before we go, though, we got to let Carrie let us know what is in the hemp headlines today that we get to right after our first break. What's in the news, Carrie?
Well, for this Monday, I'm going to tell you about a shipping scheme from Oregon to Boston. I'll talk to you about that. Also, the report is in to tell you just how much Michigan has made off of their medical marijuana program. And an artist from Korea is imprisoned for smoking, but not in Korea. And also, a conservative state's top cop says he would back medical marijuana if a lawmaker presented it to him. All that today on the hemp headlines.
All right, lots of news to check out. We will get to that as soon as we can right after this first break. Also, it's Roots Monday today. We've got some video with Ian Moore and Champagne and Reefer. Keith Stropp, the founder of NORML, joins us at 1:30 to tell us about the newest legal developments and a report from Aspen and Radical Rant on the raise of fees here in Oregon on medical marijuana.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
As High Times Senior Cultivation Editor, I'm often called into the field and asked to sample or even identify exotic strains of marijuana in their natural habitat. Now, for the first time, I've compiled more than 120 of my favorite strains into this single field guide designed to fit into your pocket as you travel the world in search of your favorite plant. From a friend's closet grow room to the wilds of Northern California, this single guide covers all of today's best-known strains, plus heirlooms and throwbacks, including High Times quality photos and information on each variety's genetic heritage and growing characteristics, plus my personal notes on aroma, flavor, and potency. So this is Danny Danko, author of the official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains, wishing you good times and great ganja.
The official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains is available at hightimes.com and finer bookstores.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
Utah's Attorney General Mark Shurtleff has said that he would support his state considering legalizing medical marijuana. Shurtleff has just completed months of intensive cancer treatment after being diagnosed with colon cancer last year. He said he considered but never used marijuana while he was going through his treatment. But he did say that he talked to several other cancer patients that traveled out of state to get medical marijuana. His experience of being so sick that he couldn't keep the nausea pills down left him with an understanding of why some patients need it and why a medical doctor would recommend it. He said he wouldn't go so far as pushing for legislation in his conservative state, but that if any lawmaker sponsored a medical marijuana bill in Utah, that he would be willing to testify in favor of it. Current Utah law allows a sentence of up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine for possession of marijuana. But if you get caught selling any amount of marijuana, you could be looking at a 5-year prison sentence and a $5,000 fine. Utah legislator Rebecca Chavez-Hoek, a Democrat from Salt Lake City, says she doesn't anticipate sponsoring any medical marijuana legislation in the upcoming session, but said that she is interested in having Utah lawmakers explore the issue. She says she understands the challenges that a medical marijuana bill would face in Utah, but hears from her constituents that many believe in the medical usefulness of medical marijuana, typically from people who are directly affected by an illness or their family members. She says for folks suffering with illness, medical marijuana is an option that lawmakers shouldn't immediately say no to without studying the issue first. Many Utah legislators have said that they would oppose any bill that legalizes marijuana for any purpose. Senator Alan Christensen, a Republican who is the chairman of the Senate Health Committee, admits that he's already made up his mind on the issue, saying that he has read that other states that have legalized medical marijuana have not been able to keep it under control. Other lawmakers in the state have said that they are open to study the benefits, but not without the blessing of the federal government first. An easy out.
Yeah. I love this lawmaker who says, I've read that other states, other medical marijuana states, just can't keep it under control. You know, they tried to do the right thing and get this medicine to some sick and disabled people, but then these healthy people are smoking it. Oh my God! That's the reaction, right? God, I'd love to help you cancer patients, but there's just too much of a chance that some healthy person might smoke a joint. Yeah, I'm afraid you're just going to have to suffer because healthy people smoking a joint, why, that would be the worst possible thing. Yeah, we'd love to help you keep that nausea at bay and help you with your pain and suffering, but healthy people might smoke pot. we just can't have that. I mean, that would be terrible. That's got to be what's going through these people's mind, and they just cannot realize how ridiculous it is. And kudos to A.G. Shurtleff there in Utah. It's amazing how much your perspective changes when you need that medicine. You know, we have this song that plays in rotation on Roots Monday, The Ballad of Devil Weed. And one of the lines is, you can't have it, but, unless I get sick, then give me what I want. And that's exactly the way this breaks down. You get sick, you'll take any medicine that will make you feel better. And shame on anyone who would want to keep this medicine away from patients that need it just because healthy people might smoke a joint.
And this story is so sad. A Korean-American hip-hop artist who was born in South Korea but maintains a home in Atlanta, Georgia, was sentenced by the Seoul District Court on last Thursday for the charge of using marijuana while he was in the U.S. Crown J, whose real name is Kim Kai-hoon, currently spends most of his time in the U.S. working on his music career. Well, that will all be put on hold as he will spend 8 long months in a Korean prison, spend an additional 2 months on probation, and will have to pay heavy fines along with doing 80 hours of community service after his release. It is unknown at this time if he will be allowed to travel back to the U.S. while he is serving out his probation. The 31-year-old rapper got his celebrity break when he was cast in the Korean reality TV show We Got Married. Since then, he's been busy on his career, putting out 3 albums here in the U.S. He was charged with the crime last December as he was visiting his homeland. South Korean police said that Crown J smoked marijuana in his home in Atlanta, Georgia, sometime between May of 2009 and October of 2010. The Seoul Police Narcotics Investigation Team charged him with possession of marijuana, say that he was getting the substance from an international source, and said that it is a common practice of his to smoke marijuana regularly. The court handed down the 8-month sentence with the statement, quote, "As a celebrity, he has the attention of the public. Because of this reason, he must take special responsibility for his conduct. By using drugs, he will influence young people negatively and set a bad example. He disappointed the public, and he also made needless misunderstandings for the court, all of which deserve a strict punishment." He did tell the court that he did no other drugs other than marijuana, and that he did that to fit in with the people he needed to approach for his music career.
Oh, I only did it because all the hip hoppers smoking the blunts. Yeah, sure. All right. But Carrie, let's just break this down, because am I understanding this right? The kid's born in South Korea, lives in Atlanta, and a Korean court is busting him in Korea for smoking weed in Atlanta. Did I get all that right?
Yeah, that's true. Because mostly because of all the Korean hip hop videos that he released that showed him smoking marijuana here in the U.S.
So am I to understand that South Korea feels it has jurisdiction to prosecute crimes that happen in America, or crimes that are in South Korea that are committed? That's just I've never heard of a court doing that.
That's not just in Korea. There are other countries that you can get in trouble for doing things outside of their border. Absolutely.
Wow, that's just amazing to me. So is there any word on why he went back to South Korea?
Well, he actually is still a Korean citizen.
Sure.
He just has made a lot of money here, and so he's bought a home in Atlanta, Georgia, and he works with American hip-hop artists. So he was just traveling home to see his family, I would imagine. It was around December, so holiday time here in the States anyway. And got busted as soon as he got home. And I tried to get more information out of this, but all of the reports were in Korean, so it was kind of hard to get it from the Google Translator.
Sure.
But yes, the actual charge was, smoking sometime between May of 2009 and October of 2010. Those months, he was in the U.S. the entire time.
And do they offer? I mean, what do they offer into evidence as proof? I wonder.
I believe it was the videos, and that he did admit it. He did admit it to the courts.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine that the Seoul Police Narcotics Investigation Team is pretty rough with getting confessions from people.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing.
Yeah, that's just amazing to me. And I guess the lesson to be learned here is if you're in a foreign land and you become successful and make it to America and smoke pot, don't go back to your home country. Yeah, what a great way to encourage your South Korean artists to want to come back and repatriate and get their money and give their money and their attention back to their home countries by locking them up for what they do in America. What a crazy story.
And Michigan's medical marijuana program has become a welcome source of income for the state. A report that was issued this week finds that the medical marijuana program in Michigan has made more than $8 million in profit in the first 2 years of the state's licensing medical marijuana patients and their caregivers. Michigan voters passed a medical marijuana law in 2008, and now 3 years later, many townships and municipalities have restricted the development of commercial sites like clinics or medical marijuana clubs. Towns like Lakeshore, Holland have already passed ordinances to keep medical marijuana away from commercial properties. Michigan charges $100 to apply for a medical marijuana card and charges the same fee for an annual renewal card. If you are receiving supplemental security income benefits, the application fees are lowered to $25. And the report also said that there are more than 100,000 state residents registered in the Michigan medical marijuana program.
As of their latest release up on their website, they've got 75,000 registered patients, but like 134,000 applications pending. $8 million profit. Did you say their card was $100 every year, Carrie?
$100 and then a $25 lowered fee
SSI.
if you get Social Security.
Yeah, so very similar to Oregon, where our card fee is $100, and SSI, food stamps, OHP, you can get a card for $20. So very similar setup, and unfortunately, Michigan, you may be setting yourself up for a lot of pain and suffering here. They've discovered now, oh look, $8 million profit, a group that we can easily tax, one that doesn't have a whole lot of political clout, one that a lot of people look down on. We're going to talk a little bit about this in the Radical Rant at 45 past, because we've got the same structure here in Oregon, and you'll be stunned at what they're doing to our fees.
And a 45-year-old Oregon woman has told police that raided her home last week that she has been sending pounds of marijuana to Boston. Elizabeth Saul from Grants Pass, Oregon, a town in the southern part of the state, admitted to police that she shipped marijuana to Boston in rented freight containers full of old furniture, and that she made $300 profit on every pound. She told him that she made about $125,000 this year from selling Oregon weed to the East Coast. Due to a tip, police visited her home where they found the former medical marijuana patient's garden. She was found to have over the limit of plants she would have been allowed. In Oregon, patients or their growers can have up to 6 mature plants, 18 immature plants, and up to 24 ounces of usable cannabis. Saul had 38 mature plants, 117 immature, and an undisclosed amount of usable cannabis. After the police found her garden, she gave them information that led to several other busts in Grants Pass. A series of medical marijuana growers in the area found the police knocking on their doors this weekend. She provided the police with information that led to at least 3 additional arrests of people in Grants Pass. Norman Smith, a 49-year-old, is suspected of providing marijuana for the East Coast shipping operation, along with Sadie Heatherstone, a 29-year-old from White City. Due to a diary the police either found in Elizabeth Saul's home or one that she voluntarily gave to police, they suspected Heatherstone of providing about 50 pounds of medical marijuana that was shipped east. A third man who was arrested was 35-year-old Jason Nelson, a medical marijuana patient who was also found to have more plants than the law allows in his home, along with a small amount of cocaine and psilocybin mushrooms. Elizabeth Saul is alleged to have thanked God in her diary for all of the safe marijuana deliveries. And along with the unauthorized plants they found in her home, they also found $15,000 in cash. Although the 3 others were raided and arrested due to the information she gave police, Elizabeth Saul has not yet been charged with the crime, but charges are expected to be coming.
Dear Diary, today I committed multiple felony federal actions. It's so nice, Diary, to be able to tell you these things, because I know you would never ever tell a federal prosecutor, and there's no way that this information would ever get into their hands to be used as proof against me in a federal case. Dear Diary, it's so nice of all of these people to help me make $300 a pound on marijuana. Let me name them and tell you exactly who they are and where they live, because I'm sure there's no way that information would ever get out in a federal investigation. How many times do we have to tell them, John? STFU, stop talking in front of uniforms.
Exactly.
Oh my God. And the problem with this too is I picked up on this story as well, and it's out of Grants Pass, Oregon. But where I picked it up off on the random old Google News search, the Republic in Columbus, Indiana.
Great.
Because this is an Associated Press story, so it's going all over the United States, showing, oh my God, look at the abuse of medical marijuana. So got more fighting to do.
I think it's time for a break, Russ.
It's time for a break and maybe a t-shirt. What was it? Snitches get stitches? Is that what it was? We'll see you in a little bit.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
And now, a message from former President George W. Bush to remind the American people of our responsibility in our nation's war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
That's right, America. Use less drugs. Put down the Prozac, the Vioxx, and the Levitra, and turn to the herb. Use less drugs. Our national policy is no longer just say no. It's now just slow down.
You get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high. And I start to fly, but said some silly thing, and that's the reason why.
Been busted? Need a lawyer? Call the NORML Legal Committee for an attorney near you. Find one at NORML.org. Remember, attorneys are cheaper than a lifelong criminal drug record.
Is that freedom? Freedom. I'm free to do it.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Roots Monday, our celebration of the music that evolved into the popular modern music of today. We pick the best of blues, country, folk, and jazz with a 420 feel and serve it up for you every Monday. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tune.
All right, love it when Roots Monday comes around and Canna Bob serves up more of this great Viper-type music on the Viper Hour at 5 o'clock on Mondays. But in the meantime, on Roots Monday, we play a video from Canna Bob. This one's some blues, great stuff from Ian Moore, some Champagne and Reefer. So we're going to turn it over now to Canna Bob and his Viper Hour video here.
Hello, and welcome to the Roots Monday Toker Tune. I'm Canna Bob, and I'm also your host for the Viper Hour every Monday at 5 p.m. right here on the NORML Network. We play some of that old jazz, reefer, rhythm, and blues from the 1920s and 30s. Stop in and give us a listen. I think you'll like it. Today we've got some blues for you on the Roots Monday Toker Tune. Ian Moore with Champagne and Reefer, one of my favorite songs. Ian Moore is a singer-songwriter born in Berkeley, California, based in Austin, Texas for most of his career. Ian Moore is blessed with a knee-weakening voice. This blues guitar prodigy first made his name touring with the illustrious Joe Ely, and later as the support act for the Rolling Stones, before Capricorn Records signed him and later promptly kicked him off the label after he became too creative for their liking. Ian Moore is now based out of Seattle, Washington. So pour yourself some bubbly, roll a fatty, and let's have some champagne and reefer with Ian Moore.
When I'm breakdown right here. Come on, Parker.
surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing media, and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527. Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit MarijuanaIsSafer.com.
I have to say that there was one question that was voted on that ranked fairly high, and that was whether legalizing marijuana would improve the economy and job creation. I don't know what this says about the online audience, but the answer is no. I don't think that is a good strategy to grow our economy. So.
In the marijuana law reform movement, the cannabis community is represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the consumers, who use and cultivate cannabis, and the defense attorneys, who represent these consumers. These are their stories. It's time for reforming marijuana laws with the NORML Legal Committee.
All right, we're joined by Keith Stropp, the founder of NORML. Hi, Keith. How are you?
I'm fine, Russ. Nice to be with you.
I trust everything's okay in Washington, D.C. today?
It's a beautiful day. We were in the high 90s over the weekend, in fact, over 100 a couple of days recently, but today it's in the mid-70s and it's gorgeous.
Oh, man, what a good time to be in D.C.
Yes,
of course, just a weekend ago, there was the Aspen Legal Seminar, and we're talking about the NORML Legal Committee. This is one of two events that are put on by the Legal Committee, but this is one that's available also to the public. Give us a breakdown on some of the things we've learned from this year in Aspen.
Well, as you know, Russ, because you've been there a number of times, the primary purpose. Hold on a minute. I just realized I've got an alarm going off that was supposed to remind me that you were calling. Let me turn it off. It keeps me from, getting spaced out and forgetting about the program.
As a professional pothead, I understand the need for technology to keep us abreast of things.
It has something to do with that short-term memory loss.
Could be.
Well, as you know, the primary purpose of those seminars in both Aspen in June and Key West in December is to train criminal defense lawyers in cases in marijuana-related cases. There are criminal defense lawyers have all kinds of places they can go for training, but ours in particular focus on the particularities of somebody who's been charged with a marijuana crime. So in that sense, it was the same old, good stuff, important stuff for lawyers, etc. And as you pointed out, we decided a few years ago that we would experiment with this idea of allowing non-lawyers who were interested to register and attend this legal seminar. We don't have room for them in Key West, so we haven't done it there. And it's been a good experiment. I think generally both the lawyers and the non-lawyers have enjoyed it. Now, having said that, what I think was mostly new this year was we had a session in which we did some brainstorming, and in particular, we were discussing possible responses to these various hostile letters from U.S. attorneys around the country. You know well, you've had one in Oregon, one in Washington, there's been one in Arizona, one in New Jersey. I think I've missed a few states, but any place where a U.S. attorney felt they could muck up the legislative process and where it looked like we were about to make some progress, they were issuing letters suggesting that the federal law still applied, and even in most cases going further and saying that state employees who were expected to implement these medical marijuana laws, especially the ones where they license growers and distributors, may themselves be at legal risk. Well, that's total fiction. I mean, New Mexico, for example, has been licensing marijuana distributors of the state of New Mexico now for a number of years. There's not been the slightest response by the federal government. They're not about to take that step. But it gives an excuse for any hostile governor who wants to use it as an excuse not to implement the new law. So, in particular, as you know, in Arizona, the governor there, who's been hostile to marijuana all along, decided to have her attorney general file suit in federal court asking for a declaratory judgment as to whether the new voter initiative that passed in Arizona that would have licensed growers and distributors was constitutional or whether it was in direct conflict with federal law.
I wonder what he might say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. It's kind of like asking a cop whether he thinks police are important. Yeah, I think they're terribly important. We should have more of them. It's a jobs program for police, and in some ways, you're right. We knew what the answer was going to be starting off. Now, I will say this: that since the governor announced his new lawsuit, the U.S. attorney in Arizona actually came back and kind of undermined her a bit by pointing out that he never himself suggested that state employees were at any risk at all. He was simply reminding them that under federal law, marijuana still is illegal. And of course, we all know that, and we've known that. We've known that throughout this whole medical marijuana movement. So that didn't add a lot to the discussion, but it was interesting to see that even he felt the governor had overstepped her role here. At any event, in Aspen, we had a good bit of discussion among some of our activist lawyers about how best to respond, and I think we're in general agreement that their ACLU is representing one group of potential dispensary owners in Arizona, and NORML Legal Committee member Tom Dean, someone who, when he was a young lawyer right out of law school, actually worked on the NORML staff. But he's since been in private practice in Florida and now more recently in Arizona. He's also representing a group of people who had a business stake in seeing that new law implemented. And frankly, we're going to be filing motions suggesting the suit should be dismissed. We don't think the governor has standing to even bring the suit. But nonetheless, the point that I think is important is the NORML Legal Committee has decided to take a more proactive role. Oftentimes, we sort of sit back and wait for these conflicts to develop, and then we weigh in or we represent one of the parties, etc., or we file an amicus brief. But I think more and more we're figuring out that sometimes it's better to be proactive and to get in and try to shape the debate rather than allowing our opponents to do that. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was certainly a positive development, exciting, and in fact I've heard from several of the attorneys who attended the seminar saying they'd like to see us incorporate that into all of our legal seminars in the future, and I think we will. Now, beyond that, of course, it was great fun to get out to Hunter Thompson's place again. We had our usual cookout country music hoedown at Al's Farm. We had a beautiful dinner at Jerry Goldstein's home on Friday night, where Chef Chris Lanter, who owns and cooks at Cash, which is a very she restaurant there in Aspen, caters the event. Our social events are always special in Aspen, and they were again this year. Aspen's one of those towns around America that where when NORML's in town, it feels like marijuana's already legal, and it's empowering for people to experience that. For most of the lawyers who come, they're from Arkansas and Utah and all kinds of states around the country where it's not so easy to smoke marijuana and be open about it. And so for them to have a chance to spend 3 or 4 days in which marijuana is essentially legal, it's an empowering experience, and I think it's healthy for everyone.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to get to some of these, pick one, go to an event sometime. Seattle Hemp Fest is free, or there's some hemp event, that you can get to in one of the more liberal states on the issue, because you need to understand and feel in your heart, and have it not just be an intellectual exercise, but understand in your heart what it feels like to be free. And that builds your activism so much.
Yeah, I think our annual meeting in Denver this year, Russ, was a great example of that. For most of the people who attended, I don't think they'd ever been in an area where marijuana was so close to being fully legal. I mean, technically it's only legal for medical use, but my goodness, the emerging medical use industry there is incredible. The number of new jobs and young entrepreneurs who jumped into the void and are creating jobs, and members of Congress who are willing to stand up and not just say smoking marijuana is not such a bad thing, but actually say, are you kidding? They're bringing badly needed employment and creating new jobs for our state, so they welcome us.
Yeah.
It's very empowering to see how close we are to a tipping point on this issue.
I was wondering if at Aspen any of our legal experts did any presentations on that new Supreme Court decision in Kentucky v. King. For our listeners, that's the one where they smell marijuana, they knock, they hear scurrying, so they can break down the door. Any developments on that?
Well, no developments other than it certainly was discussed. Jerry Goldstein out of San Antonio, he splits his time between San Antonio and
Wish
Aspen.
I could have seen Goldstein on this one. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Jerry always delivers, every year, delivers a fabulous hour-long lecture on the latest search and seizure decisions. And, of course, this one was terribly unsettling for any criminal defense lawyer, actually anybody who understands personal freedom and personal privacy. The police, in essence, were allowed to create an emergency situation, which they then could claim gave them justification to enter somebody's apartment without a warrant.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on. If there's anything that's always sacred under our Constitution, it is that you may not enter a person's home without a warrant issued based upon probable cause. But they're finding more and more exceptions, and we sometimes refer to that as the drug exception to the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
In addition to all the other damage that the drug laws do, they have eroded our constitutional rights in a significant manner.
Yeah, in that decision when they said, the police creating the exigent circumstance, because, they could always break in if they heard someone getting murdered or raped, or if there's a crime, they could always break in. But now they're saying the cops can create that exigent circumstance. To me, that sounds like the old flinch game we used to play in elementary school. Like, I made you flinch, so now I get to hit you.
Yeah, it is sort of like that, but it has more significant consequences.
Certainly. Another bill but a court decision that I'd like to get your comment on, just happened up here in the Pacific Northwest, and it pretty much locked up the West Coast as a no medical marijuana patients need apply state, where employers now have the right in all three of those states to openly discriminate against medical patients. And your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a sad development, but it's not a surprise because, frankly, here's kind of the way the issue breaks down. And by the way, it's not just those three states out there.
Sure.
The only state so far among the 16 medical use states where one can at least argue that an employer may not fire you for testing positive is Arizona, and it's because of the specific language that was included in that initiative, but because it's not been implemented, frankly, we're not sure how it's going to be applied by the courts. But in all other states that have medical marijuana, what people have to understand, that protects you from arrest or prosecution under state law as long as you're careful to abide within the parameters of not having more than you're allowed to have, and as long as you have a proper doctor's recommendation. But it does not create a fundamental right, and therefore a private employer is, as the current law already has been for some time, they can fire somebody for any reason, no matter how unfair, except they may not use race, gender, or religion. Those are considered fundamental rights. Unfortunately, the medical use of marijuana is not a fundamental right. The courts, the legislature hasn't declared it to be, and the courts have not accepted it as that. Therefore, a private company that wants to continue what they like to call a drug-free environment. Of course, we know it's not really drug-free because you can take all kinds of prescription drugs and you can drink alcohol the night before, and that's no problem. But somehow, if they want to drug test employees, and if you test positive for THC, even though you're an authorized medical patient in that state, they can fire you or refuse to hire you even though there's no evidence that you ever showed up at work in an impaired condition. It's terribly unfair, but it is not a surprise because that's sort of where the law's been for a while. I think what we have to do is we have to begin to go back to the states one by one, as California has begun to try to do, and get a law passed that protects employees' rights in that regard. Nobody has a right to go to work in an impaired condition. I don't care whether they work at NORML or work at General Motors. On the other hand, just because you test positive for THC does not suggest that you're impaired. If you're a regular smoker like I am, I would test positive for 6 to 8 weeks after I last smoked marijuana, but you're only impaired for 2 to 3 hours. So obviously there's a basic unfairness involved in that approach, and we need to go back and fix it legislatively.
Yeah, and when I tell this story to people, a lot of times they'll come back to me and they'll say, well, what about the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and doesn't that protect us somehow?
Well, it has not been held to do that to date. Now, it's been raised a number of times, and I tend to agree. If it were a prescription drug, or if this were a condition that, if you were being fired because of your underlying medical condition, that act would apply. It would protect you. They could not fire you. They couldn't fire you just because you came down with a serious disease, for example. But unfortunately, they don't say they're firing you because of your underlying condition. They're firing you because you tested positive for marijuana. Now, we know the reason you tested positive in many of these cases is because of the underlying condition. You were using the marijuana to deal with that disease or condition. But, again, so far, the courts have never been willing to apply that statute to protect a medical marijuana patient.
Yeah, it's a shame that they don't either, and it just shows why we need to go forward with full legalization, just because there's always going to be this second-class citizenship that turns up in medical laws.
Well, it's the collateral consequences, and frequently the collateral consequences on a marijuana arrest or conviction are more serious than the underlying offense because in most areas today, certainly urban areas and in many states, people kind of realize that smoking marijuana is no big deal. So even if it's still illegal technically, and even if you get caught, you kind of get slapped on the wrist and you get fined, but you go on your way. It doesn't disrupt your life. But the collateral consequences you may lose your job. Think about if you're a teacher and you get busted for marijuana. You not only get fired, but there's not a school district in the country that would hire somebody who just got fired for smoking marijuana, even though it had nothing to do with smoking or being impaired while they were on the job. Right. So the collateral consequences associated with a marijuana conviction, arrest or conviction, are frequently far more damaging to an individual than the underlying conviction itself.
Absolutely. One last thing, Keith. You're there in Washington, D.C. Can you give us any updates on progress of ending marijuana prohibition at the federal level?
You bet I can. I'm happy to. I can't get into great detail because I don't want to inadvertently undermine the announcement that we will be expecting from some friendly members of Congress about a week from now. In fact, probably it will be a week from tomorrow. But we have been working for over a year. When I say we, I want to be fair and say that this is an example of where NORML has worked with the Drug Policy Alliance, with the Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and with the Marijuana Policy Project. We've all worked closely together on this, and we have developed a law that's going to be introduced that will totally legalize marijuana under federal law. Now, let me briefly explain what that means. We're not proposing that the federal government dictate to states what they must do about marijuana policy. We're trying to mimic the steps we took at the end of alcohol prohibition, and what we did then was we removed all federal laws and said to the states, you're free to do what you want. If you choose to keep criminal penalties against alcohol drinking, you can do that. You can keep it as a criminal offense. On the other hand, those states that wish to experiment with various forms of legalization, you're free to do that as well. And that's precisely what this bill is going to propose on the federal level. And again, it's not that we think we can pass that on the federal level in the short run. I mean, that'll take a few years to get passed. But what it's intended to do is to reinforce those courageous legislators on the state level who are beginning to realize that full legalization is the answer, not just medical use, but for any responsible use. And the first question that someone always says to them is, but wouldn't that put you in conflict with federal law? What we want to do is start the process of changing federal law so that federal law will not be in conflict with the proposal on the state level.
Yeah, it's literally, let's not make a federal case out of it.
That's exactly right. You know, there's some states where they still have dry counties. Sure. I think some in Alabama, some in Mississippi. In several of the states, they didn't have legal retail outlets where you could go buy alcohol, I should say, not marijuana, where you could go buy alcohol until, I think, maybe 1980s, 1990s. It'll be the same with marijuana. Some of the states, the Deep South, will most likely continue marijuana prohibition for some time. Now, not forever. At some point, the price is just going to be too great. But there are a number of states today where, if they were free from federal interference, I think we could pass marijuana legalization even legislatively in a handful of states. And certainly by voter admission, we know we could. So this is an important milestone. It's not the end of the battle, but it sure is a significant step in getting us very much closer to the turning point.
Yep, and speaking of that battle and that long fight, this Friday is the 40th anniversary of President Nixon declaring war on drugs. You were there at the beginning of that war, and your thoughts about that?
Well, it's interesting because you're right. It's, I think, the 18th is the actual 40th year anniversary, and as you know, NORML turned 40 in May 2nd of this year. So we started this organization just about the time that Nixon was announcing his war on drugs. I'm not sure if our timing was bad or what. But what I would say about that is it was never a war on drugs. It was a war on drug users. We don't lock up drugs. We lock up people. And it was mostly marijuana smokers. So it was an evil, mean-spirited campaign from the very beginning. It was simply intended to reinforce his conservative social base of political support. But, boy, in the process, you can imagine the millions of Americans who've been arrested and locked up on marijuana charges because of President Nixon's misguided war on drugs.
Yeah, no kidding. 20.8 million marijuana arrests in that 40 years, $1 trillion spent. It's time to end it, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep fighting, and you can help us by joining NORML. Go to NORML.org, NORML.org. We've also got a special on conference posters, some of the classic conference posters available. Check the top right corner of NORML.org for that. Keith Stroup is the current legal counselor and, of course, the founder of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, joining us from the offices in Washington, D.C. Keith, thanks so much for joining us again.
It's always my pleasure, Russ. Thank you.
All right, we come back, a little radical ranting on Oregon blackmail. Be right back.
The world's greatest cannabis competition is coming back to the Bay Area. Over 100 strains of medical marijuana will go head-to-head to see who's the dankest in California. Indicas, sativas, hybrids, concentrates, edibles, plus THC, CBD, and CBN testing. The High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, June 25th and 26th at the Concourse Exhibition Center in San Francisco. It's gonna be awesome. Get your tickets at medcancup.com.
Want more than just your normal show live? Get your daily fix of marijuana news and interviews on the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the weekday podcast available on iTunes and at stash.normal.org.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Oh boy, we thought we were out of the woods in this legislative session here in Oregon. The bills, all of the bills put forth to restrict the Oregon medical marijuana program went down in defeat. Most recently, the omnibus bill put forth by law enforcement that pretty much would have handed over the private patient registry to those folks. We thought everything was good and we're just about ready to celebrate the end of the session when, they snuck a fast one on us, folks. Here in the state of Oregon, the legislators are proposing an increase in medical marijuana fees in this state from $100 annually per patient to $200 annually per patient, right? You're thinking, oh my God, that's terrible, $100 to $200, but at least those folks that are on the Oregon health plan or that are getting food stamps or that are getting Social Security disability payments, at least those folks will have a low income option. Not so much. That $20 option that had been available for patients from those 3 different groups are now restricted to just one group. That's right. Folks on food stamps, folks on the Oregon health plan will have to pay the full $200 fee increase. But wait, that's not all. If you order now, you also get a $200 grower fee. That's right. They're going to institute a brand new fee for those patients who aren't growing for themselves or do not have a caregiver to grow for them and have to get a third-party grower. There will be now a $200 charge for the third-party grower card. So consider if you're a person, that might be on food stamps and Oregon health plan, fixed income, getting by on maybe 3 digits worth of income per month, and you struggle to pay that $100 or that $20 fee even for you is a difficulty. Now you're going to have to pay $400 for your medical marijuana protection money. But this brings me up to something I'm stealing from Damon Alexander, and that is, why is anybody surprised when their blackmailer raises the extortion fee? Because that's really what we've been talking about here in medical marijuana is protection money, a blackmail racket by the state that says, we're going to lock up all the potheads, but for you sick folks, you give us $100, we'll look the other way. We can still fire you. Sure, we can fire you. We can kick you out of your jobs. We can test your urine to see if you might have been driving, take your license away for that. We can have your name on a database, your address of where you're going to be growing your plants. We can make you jump through hoops, see a doctor every year. Even if you're paralyzed in a wheelchair, we'll make you see a doctor every year, pay the money it costs to see a doctor every year to verify that you're still paralyzed in the wheelchair and pay your what was $100 every year. Yeah, we're going to rack that up just a little bit. We just need a little bit more of that fee money, maybe $200. You need someone to grow for you. How about $400? You don't want to pay the fee. Well, you are paralyzed in a wheelchair. Won't be too tough for the cops to slap some cuffs on you and throw you in a cell, because that's what's going to happen. They are looking at this, and by the way, it's going to backfire them on them as well. These legislators looked at this and they said, oh my God, we've got a budget where we can't fill up the safe drinking water fund. We don't have money for the safe drinking water fund. Where will we get this money? Well, Lord knows we can't have a sales tax here in the state of Oregon. Couldn't do that like, almost every other state in the nation. Couldn't do that. Couldn't raise taxes on anybody. I know what we can do. Let's pick on the medical marijuana patients. They're willing to to give $100 every year. I'm sure they're willing to give $200 or maybe $400. Gee, there's 40,000 of them. We could make $7 million for the biennium. For 2 years, we could make $7 million off these guys. But guess what, Oregon legislators? That's going to backfire on you because you're not going to have 40,000 patients if you jack their fees up to $400 to register. And think about this too. We oftentimes have people that have families that are on the medical marijuana program, a husband and a wife who are both disabled and both have to register a grower. So now it's going to cost them $800 for the husband and wife to get on the program. They'll say, screw it, I'll stay illegal, spend that $800 and buy me a pound. That's what's going to happen. You're just going to create 10, 20, 30,000 more criminals. And those criminals will be the sickest, most disabled, and the least able to defend themselves in court. The $7 million per biennium you thought you were going to get is going to dry up. It's going to go away because the people aren't going to pay those fees. Meanwhile, the people who will be able to pay those fees, you'll not have the revenue you thought you were going to get from that. You'll jack the fees up more on them. Gee, if they were willing to pay $200, I'm sure they'll be willing to pay $250 just because you'll need to make up that revenue that you lost from all the people leaving the program. Meanwhile, those of us in the program have been screaming at you for years now about the need for safe access, about how setting up dispensaries would create a revenue stream for the state, that we would be more than willing to have balanced budgets by having more jobs created, by having reasonable taxation, reasonable fees on this system. But no, that always gets tossed aside. And of course, the most logical way to solve the entire problem with access for patients, with revenue for the state, with jobs for the people would be to legalize the marijuana for the healthy people. You think you can get $7 million per biennium off of 40,000 cannabis users? What do you think you could get per biennium on 400,000 cannabis users in the state of Oregon? It's right there in front of you. A big stinking pile of money, a big, huge group of people who would be more than willing to pay a reasonable tax instead of being locked up in a cell. But no, you continue to ignore that. You continue to toss it aside because of some outdated, antiquated, stereotyped, prejudicial notions about what cannabis is and what cannabis users are like. We are sick of it. We're fed up with it. And I'm calling on medical marijuana card holders. You know what we're going to do? We're going to burn our cards. We're going to send them back. We're going to say, no, we're not going to pay your protection money anymore. Why don't you spend the money to lock up some people in wheelchairs? I'm sure you'll love the public relations you get out of that, legislators. You are not standing up for the people of Oregon. You are disobeying the will of the people on this issue, and you are a shame for you. It is a shame and a travesty for you to treat the sickest, most disabled Oregonians this way. We will not stand for it. You're going to be hearing from us. And that, my friends, is the rant for the day. For Ganja John and Cannabis Carrie and Kaliko the intern, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. For those of you on the podcast, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.